One scream echoed across Naboo, and then silence. Obi-Wan fell. Not just a Jedi, but the future itself. In a galaxy shaped by choices and bound by destiny, a single moment of hesitation shattered the balance. No final leap, no furious strike, no master's revenge. Darth Maul stands triumphant, a blade of vengeance in the shadow of the dying Republic. Qui-Gon's vision perishes with him, and the Chosen One drifts, unanchored, untrained, and vulnerable. The Jedi Council, blind to the storm gathering, falters in the face of a rising dark tide. Imagine a galaxy where the light never returned in that feed hanger, where the twin suns set not on hope, but on a Sith empire reborn from blood and silence. This is the story of what never should have happened, but almost did. What if Darth Maul killed Obi-Wan, and darkness claimed its first true victory? It began with a fall. The moment the crimson blade sliced through the air, and the young Jedi's scream echoed in the depths of Theed's power generator core, the galaxy shifted. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Padawan of Qui-Gon Jinn, defender of peace and balance, was gone. Not a martyr, not a master. His victory was not only physical, it was mythic. He had slain 2 Jedi. He had ended a prophecy before it could truly begin. The boy waited in that hangar, wide-eyed, alone, unaware that the Guardians who believed in him had perished. Padme Amidala, her heart already stirred by the innocence and strength of the child, cradled the shattered silence of the Queen's victory. But it was a hollow victory. Mace Windu and Yoda felt the tremor ripple through the Force like a blade drawn across their very souls. Something ancient had awakened, something cruel, something inevitable. They had lost 2 brothers that day, but what they could not yet see was the war they had truly lost, the war for the Chosen One. Without Obi-Wan, there was no final plea to the Council. No voice of reluctant youth championing Qui-Gon's dying wish. No vow made at a funeral pyre. Taken in by Padme's compassion and shielded by her power, the boy grew within the halls of Naboo's palace. His connection to the Force began to surge unchecked, untrained, untamed. The dreams returned, visions of sandstorms, fire, and a cloaked man with yellow eyes whispering from beyond the veil. By the time the Jedi returned to check in on the Queen's protectorate, the boy had grown stronger. He could move objects with his mind, see things before they happened, but his power was wild, feral. The Jedi sensed it. So did another. Darth Sidious watched from Coruscant. He had lost Maul in the skirmish weeks later, struck down during a raid gone wrong, a tool discarded. But his gaze had shifted. He had found something more powerful, the one the Council had denied. The Chosen One, untouched by Jedi dogma, ripe for shaping. The Jedi, fractured by the loss of 2 powerful knights, began to grow cautious. Dooku, disillusioned with the Order's failure to honor Qui-Gon's vision, severed ties far sooner. With no Obi-Wan to face him on Geonosis, there was no last-minute rescue, no duel in the dust. No duel in the dust. The Clone Wars ignite, not as a clean, manufactured, 2-sided war, but as chaotic insurrection. Entire star systems burn. Trade routes collapse. War becomes a disease with no antidote, and the Jedi are overwhelmed. Sidious watches it unfold like a conductor waiting for the crescendo. His greatest challenge, balancing both sides of the war, has become easier. Yet. A blade, a weapon, a soul twisted enough to become the fist of his empire. He turns his gaze to Naboo, where the boy is now a man. Anakin Skywalker grows up outside the Jedi Temple. He is loved but not understood, idolized but not guided. In secret, he practices. He builds. He trains himself with ancient holocrons. He scavenges through black markets and Sith tombs. Padme sees the good in him, but she cannot quell the anger beneath. He remembers his mother's suffering on Tatooine, and in this timeline, he returns sooner, alone. He finds her, just as he did before, dying in the shadows of the Tusken camp, and just like before, he kills them all. But this time, there is no Jedi mentor to stop him, no quiet Yoda to feel the ripple and whisper restraint. There is only darkness, and the man waiting to welcome him into it. Sidious arrives on Naboo, not as a Sith, but as a savior, a political ally, a voice of reason in an era of fear. He speaks to Anakin of power, of prophecy, of a destiny the Jedi were too blind to see. He offers him a new path, not of servitude, but of freedom. And Anakin, lost in a galaxy of fire and forgotten promises, listens. The Jedi Council senses the shift too late. Anakin has disappeared. Padme sends secret messages begging for help, but the Council debates endlessly. Yoda feels the Force clouded. Mace Windu demands answers. A Sith Lord, brutal and precise, who commands fleets and silences entire systems with a wave of his hand. None know who he is, but the Jedi begin to fear him. Only Yoda suspects the truth. Only he dares to believe that the boy they abandoned, has become the nightmare they swore to prevent. She tries to reach him, pleading through encrypted transmissions. She reminds him of who he was, who he could still be. But each time, the voice on the other end grows colder. Each time, Anakin slips further into the abyss. The Sith have returned, not in twos, not in shadows. Sidious plays the Jedi against the Republic, whispering lies to the Senate, orchestrating Jedi failures across the stars. He paints them as zealots. Jedi hunted not by engineered soldiers, but by civilians who once worshipped them. The purge is not surgical, it is chaos. Anakin, now Darth Vortex, leads the campaign, not as a servant, but as a believer. In his mind, the Jedi betrayed him, betrayed her. Yoda and Windu mount one final stand, gathering the last of their forces. They face Anakin on the shattered plains of Alderaan's outer moon. It is not a duel of master and apprentice, but of ideologies, of failure, of grief. Mace falls. The twins are scattered. Luke, spirited away to Tatooine by Bail Organa's agents. Leia, hidden deep within the political core of Alderaon. Neither know their origin, neither know the name, Skywalker. Darth Vortex rules beside Sidious, but cracks begin to show. He is powerful. Yes, but never content. Sidious, ever coming, senses unrest. He begins grooming new apprentices. As he always will. And Anakin sees it. He remembers the warmth of Padme's hand, her voice, the promise of a different life. In the desert, father and son, standing beneath twin suns, blades ignited, not as enemies, not yet, but as echoes of a legacy that never had a chance. Luke, untrained but unshaken, holds his ground. Anakin hesitates. This moment, this singular heartbeat, is the fracture point of the galaxy's soul. Will the father kill the son, as he once slaughtered a village? Or will the son awaken the ember of hope left smoldering inside the mask? The story ends here, unfinished. A myth not yet told. We may never know the answer, but the Force remembers, always. It began not with a battle cry, but with silence. Obi-Wan Kenobi, brilliant, bold, not yet a master, hung on the edge of destiny in the underbelly of Theed. His master, Qui-Gon Jinn, had fallen, and now, face to face with the red demon of the Sith, Obi-Wan made his final leap. A scream cut short, and then nothing. The Padawan fell, body broken, lightsaber tumbling into the abyss beside him. No final strike, no vengeance, no future. Darth Maul stood victorious, twin sabers buzzing in triumph. The Queen's victory was ashes, because in the dark corners of the Force, a new wound opened, one that would not heal. And in the shadows, Darth Sidious watches with cold satisfaction, for without Obi-Wan, the future bends to his will. The Jedi don't know it yet, but the war is already over. The hangar fell quiet. Skywalker waited near the Naboo starfighter, wide-eyed, clutching hope like a child clutches light in the dark. But no one came for him. The Jedi who promised to return, Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi, were gone. No triumph, no reunion, just the silence of those who would never return. Padme Amidala, barely older than Anakin herself, saw the look in his eyes, the first fracture. The first seed of abandonment. Not the kind he truly needed. When word reached Coruscant, the Jedi Council sat in heavy silence. The loss of two Jedi, especially one as revered as Qui-Gon, shook even the most stoic masters. But what disturbed them more was the boy. The child Qui-Gon claimed was the chosen one, now orphaned by fate and untouched by Jedi discipline. Mace Windu remained skeptical of Yazzie. Too old, too unpredictable. We will not train him. Yoda agreed, though his silence hinted at unease. A shadow clouded the Force, but its shape remained unclear. And so, the Chosen One remained untrained, left on Naboo under the Queen's protection. Unaware that his destiny had just been abandoned, the Jedi, bound by caution and fear, walked away, and in doing so, they left a hole in the Force that would never close. In the dark corners of the galaxy, Darth Sidious smiled once again. The boy he would one day call apprentice was already slipping through the Jedi's fingers. Not taken by the dark, but given to it. He wandered the halls of Naboo's palace, a child touched by the Force, but untouched by its discipline. He could feel things, see glimpses of futures that never arrived, hear echoes of people before they spoke. But there was no one to explain why. No master, no training, just... The council, wary of loss and prophecy, turned inward. They spoke of balance, but feared its price. They left the Chosen One to the care of a queen, hoping the Force would forget what they had refused. But the Force does not forget. But Maul was brute strength, a weapon. What Sidious needed now was a vessel. A man cloaked in black, offering his hand. The Jedi ignored these signs, but Sidious did not. He sent agents, information traders, scribes of the Sith who slipped through borders unseen, seeding ancient knowledge in scavenged archives and encrypted dreams. Anakin found pieces, texts, relics, fragments of a world buried by the Jedi, and slowly he began to build his own path. No one guided him, and when he closed his eyes, the voice whispering in the dark grew louder. Not a warning, a promise. The galaxy trembled as old cracks widened into open wounds. Without Obi-Wan Kenobi, events unraveled differently. There was no protector to escort Padme to Geonosis, no Jedi to follow the trail to Kamino. The clone army remained a phantom, untouched in its vats, and the Jedi went to war unprepared. Count Dooku left the Order far earlier, disillusioned, emboldened by Qui-Gon's death and the Council's blindness. He raised the Separatist movement, not in secret, but in fury, and without Jedi interference, it grew vast, brutal, and fast. The Clone Wars began, but without clones. Instead of carefully orchestrated battles, chaos erupted across the stars. Planetary militias clashed with private armies. Mercenaries flooded hyperspace lanes. The Jedi, spread thin and without a unified command, became wanderers, warriors, not peacekeepers. They were no longer symbols of justice, but ghosts of a crumbling age. And as the chaos deepened, the Sith moved freely through the smoke. Anakin, now a teenager, watched the galaxy burn from Naboo's quiet hills. He saw footage of Jedi falling on remote worlds, heard whispers of Dooku's power, and felt something stirring inside him. A hunger. A fire. In coded transmissions, Anakin discovered in places no one knew he searched. He promised answers. He promised power. He promised to make the pain stop. The boy once meant to bring balance was beginning to tip the scale, and still the Jedi did nothing. Tatooine called to him like a scar that refused to heal. Anakin returned, not as the innocent child who left, but as a boy on the edge of manhood, filled with questions the Jedi never answered, and pain no one could ease. Shackled, beaten, dying in the sand, her last breath ignited something in him. The Tusken camp was wiped out to the last child. The Force screamed. But this time, no Jedi felt it. No voice guided him back, only silence, and something watching. Darth Sidious felt it through the dark currents of the Force. This was not an outburst. It was a passage. He appeared as a mentor, a man who understood grief, a man who promised truth in a galaxy built on lies. Anakin listened. He left Naboo in silence. When the Jedi finally noticed, he was gone. No one saw the ship leave. No one traced the trail. Anakin Skywalker vanished into the stars, and in his place, a shadow began to rise. He would not be trained by the Jedi. He would be forged by the Sith, not in a temple, but in fire. Only the mask, molten gold, silent as death, and a presence in the Force that bent rooms before he entered them. He emerged in the midst of the chaos, commanding fleets not as a servant, but as a symbol. Ruthless, precise, untouchable. The boy, the one they left behind, was now the blade in the Sith's hand. And Sidious? He watched with satisfaction. Darth Vortex was more than an apprentice. He was proof that the Jedi had failed. That prophecy was nothing without faith, and that power, once denied, would always find its way back in darker form. She begged Anakin to remember who he was, but the voice that answered her calls was distant, cold, not cruel, but hollow. And in the vacuum, Darth Vortex filled the void, not as a Sith hiding in the shadows, but as a conqueror standing in the light. The galaxy did not resist him, it needed him. A prophecy had been fulfilled, just not the way anyone had hoped. Order 66 came, but not with clone troopers and coded chips. This time, it came through propaganda, fear, and betrayal. Sidious no longer needed puppets in armor. He had already broken the galaxy spirit. He spread lies like wildfire. The Jedi were traitors, cultists, warmongers who let the Republic burn. His words took root, and the people turned. Temples were stormed by angry mobs. Worlds that once praised Jedi wisdom now lit their libraries with fire. And at the center of it all, leading the purge, was Darth Vortex. He didn't hesitate. He didn't falter. He believed the Jedi had abandoned him and betrayed her. He slaughtered them across the stars. Masters, knights, younglings. Not because he hated them, because he believed he was saving the galaxy from them. She went into labor alone. 2 children were born in the shadows, Luke and Leia. She whispered their names and died before she could ever tell him. Yoda and Windu launched a final stand, a desperate strike on the moon of Aldarian. The duel between Vortex and the Jedi was not one of passion, but of prophecy broken. And with that, the Jedi were gone, not erased by an army, but undone by the choices they failed to make. The Empire rose from ash, not design, and the Chosen One stood at its helm, not as a savior, but as its sword. Years passed. The name Skywalker faded into legend, erased from the archives, whispered only in fear. Whispered only in fear. Darth Vortex ruled with yet even as he tightened his grip, cracks formed beneath the mask, whispers of betrayal, visions of sand, dreams he could not explain. And then, a name. Luke. The Force surrounded him like armor, and for the first time in years, Darth Vortex felt something he had buried long ago. Fear. He traced the whispers back to a desert planet, to Tatooine, the place where everything began, and everything was taken from him. There, beneath the twin suns, father and son met. But no words were spoken. This was not a battle between Sith and Jedi. This was a reckoning between what was and what should have been, a son fighting for the future. A father shackled to the past. And in that silent duel, the Force itself held its breath. Because destiny had not died with Obi-Wan. It had only waited. This is the final shadow of that broken path. The legacy of a single death, and the empire it unleashed. What if Darth Maul had killed Obi-Wan Kenobi? A galaxy falls. A prophecy breaks. And the Force remembers, always.